There's a time that comes in every person's life when life knocks you down. You're going to have these moments where it seems like you are in the fight for your life, and everywhere you turn, you're just taking shots. You're not sure how can you recover? How can you overcome? How can you rise above? But in every person's life, you're going to have a moment when you have to decide for yourself, you know what? If I've got to fight, I'm going to win this fight. I've got some strength inside of me. I've got some power inside of me. I've got some greatness inside of me that has to be unlocked and can be unlocked and must be unlocked. I just got to find the way. That's what we're talking about today. How do you find the way to unlock your inner strengths in the face of adversity, in the face of anxiety, in the face of the very real pressures that interact with so many of us in our lives? Today's guest is someone that I'm excited for you all to meet, or for some of you, it may be you may know him already, and so he may just be someone you're already familiar with. He's already touched your life, pushed you in some way, provoked you in some way, inspired you in some way. So whether you are meeting him for the first time or you're meeting him again, I met this next individual. I was actually filming for a TV show, and we met in the lobby of the show, and within about 30 seconds, he was giving me a little bit of his testimony. He was witnessing to me, and whether he knew it or not, he was speaking life into me. He's just one of these people, whatever he's doing, he's always speaking life, and he's always raising the awareness for you of what you're capable of. This next person that you're going to meet, he is a former professional boxing trainer. He's a business owner. He's a motivational speaker. He does so many things in so many different areas. He's a filmmaker and producer. And yet, at the end of the day, he's just a humble, hardworking man who's been through heck and back. No, we'll call it what it is. Been through hell and back and learned the power of heaven in the journey. So, without further ado, I'm bringing to you my friend, Mr. Craig Stilley. Welcome to Hope Rising. How are you today, my brother?
Doing good, brother. Thank you for inviting me on.
Absolutely. Hold on. I gotta hit my button again because it's still soloing on me. There you go. Your handsome face. All right. So I won't make you say too much about yourself, but like if somebody doesn't know you, they've never heard of you before. What do you like to say? Who do you say that you are when people ask you? Because I know you've done many things.
Well, for most of all, I'm a commercial paint contractor. I own a big business where I do industrial and commercial paint contracting, but I'm also an author, dabble in the film industry, and do boss consulting and uh, motivational speaking and things of this such.
Hmm. So I know that one of the bonds that you and I have together is that we both have had real life grapples with anxiety. I have shared with my audience that whether I seem like the type or not, I still have anxiety attacks
Mhm.
almost every week, and so I still have to turn to different tools and techniques in order to find peace, in order to find rest. I'm listening to soothing therapeutic music inside in my headphones right now to
Mhm.
calm me down, keep me in a place so that I can stay focused.
Mhm.
I know that the battle for against anxiety has been a major battle in your life too. Could you tell the audience just a little bit about that? Share whatever you want, but just kind of paint that picture so they really understand who they're sitting in front of.
Yeah, when I was in third grade, it hit me. I didn't know exactly what it was. I never got help, but this it was depression mixed in with it. I sort of have an OCD symptoms of thoughts that I couldn't get out of my head. Um, crazy type things that thinking patterns and everything and behaviors. And then it kind of went away and it hit me again when I was 16. I had a severe panic attack in class, and I've been fighting it since. I go through periods of where it's in remission for years, and it sometimes comes back. I take medication, but it's been very tumultuous. Panic attacks, anxiety, social anxiety, OCD. I've had them all, and I've battled against them and put it in remission.
That's really interesting that you share that because I know that for many people when they see people like you and I've met you in person, you've met me in person. I come off as nothing but confident. You
Mhm.
come off as nothing but confident. And so
Mhm.
people would never really know the internal struggles and the internal battles that we have.
Mhm.
That also tells me that there's a whole world full of people who are
Mhm.
also struggling in silence. What do
Right.
you say to those people who struggle in silence and that find that they're winning a battle they don't feel like they can ever win?
Well, I mean, we all have something we're battling, but you don't have to battle in silence. I mean, it's just okay to speak out, and that's what I do because I get the same thing you do. You have anxiety and all this. I'm like, tremendously. I've suffered tremendously, and so it's okay. If you break your foot or if you have a kidney problem, you don't mind speaking out about that. And it's the same thing with mental health. The brain's an organ like anything else, and it can have problems, and so it's okay to seek help and speak out. It's very liberating once you speak out about it, and tell people and try to get help. It's there's nothing wrong with asking for help, and the minute you have an issue that you're trying to face.
Mm. So one of the things that really drew me to you was some of your journey and your ultimately your testimony. You and I are both believers in Jesus, and
Mhm.
some of your faith journey is some of the most mind-blowing stuff I've ever heard in my entire life. And if you didn't have the proof right in front of you, because you're used to this by now, that when you tell your stories, you actually give people the proof in real time so that they know you're not full of it, right? Can you just take the listeners, the viewers, whether they're watching online or listening, by the way, if you guys are watching right now, make sure you hit like, hit share, leave your comments, share this with a friend. All right, you guys are going to love this next story. They need to hear a little bit of the Evander story, right? And just
Okay.
in general, tell them a little bit about your walk with Christ, a little bit about learning to trust Him and learning to trust His voice. Because this story for me was quite life changing for me.
Well, like I say, when I was young, I suffered from anxiety, and when I was 22 in 1996, well, let me back up. Evander had always been my favorite fighter since the '84 Olympics. I mean, I watched him every one of his fights.
Evander Holyfield, we're talking about, right?
Yes, Evander Holyfield, yes. And so when I got into boxing and training fighters, but in 1996, I was still struggling with my anxiety. It was coming back. I was actually atheist. I didn't believe in God. And I was just kind of drifting. And when I heard Evander, when they were going to match him up with Mike Tyson, the whole world was like saying he's going to lose. I mean, everybody was like, you're going to lose, you're going to get hurt. Even myself. But I kept hearing him. I'd always hear him talk about God, and about Jesus, and I was like, hey, that's good, But the boxing, that's great. And so when he was up there to fight Tyson, I was like, man, what are you doing? Retire. You're going to get hurt. And I heard Tyson, talking all this stuff. And when they got to Evander, he said, he would humbly said, I'm going to win. I'm going to win by TKO. He said, I have the Holy Spirit, and I'm going to show you what you can do when you have the Holy Spirit. And I was like, man, is this guy got fanatical way, the Holy Spirit. And so when I started watching this fight, I know for some people they think a boxing match, but for me it was life transforming. I saw Evander get up there and he said he was handling Mike. He's pushing Mike back. And Mike didn't know what to do. He eventually beat him and knocked him out, like he said. And I was mesmerized. Something in my spirit was drawing me to this fight. It was no longer just a boxing match; it was something spiritual. And so, at the end of it, when Ferdy Pacheco, the commentator, got up there and he said, "Evander, how did you pull off this upset, this miraculous upset?" Evander said, "I'm led by the Spirit of God. Jesus is alive." And Ferdy cut him off and said, "Well, let's get back to boxing. Hopefully, God is here for everybody. Let's get back to boxing. How'd you do this?" And Evander gave him a grin and said, "Because I'm led by the Spirit of God." He said, "Jesus, I'm washed up, but with Jesus Christ, I'm not washed up." And something hit me, and I said, "I want what that guy's got." And so my dad at the time owned a commercial paint contracting company, and we were doing some jobs, and there was a black man that happened to be a laborer out there. And man, God couldn't have picked a better person for me at the time. He was this mean-looking guy, man, mustache and beard. He had been to prison and stuff for gangs and everything, but had been a minister for 10 years. So I saw Johnny out. I didn't know who to talk to, and I asked him um, what was going on. I said, "Man, did this happen?" He said, "God, Jesus is calling on you. He's using Evander Holyfield to speak to you and to call on you." And I was like, "What do I do?" He said, "Talk to God, pray to God." And he said, "Just talk to him. If you doubt him, tell him you doubt him. If you're unbelief, whatever it is, tell him, because he knows it anyway. He just wants to hear it from you." So man, I kept on praying every night. Nothing would happen. And Johnny just kept saying, "Just keep talking to God." And 2 months of the day, Jesus spoke to me and I turned my life to the Lord. And, then for 5 years, people would tell me, "You need to write Evander, man, and tell him this." I'm like, "Man, I'm gonna get a picture with a name or something." And a trainer that happened to train me trained Evander, Kenny Weldon. We were corner fights one time, and he asked me if I wanted to meet Evander in 2001. So I got to go meet him and everything, and that was a miraculous thing. And then 18 years later, we've gotten back together and we're best friends. So uh, the story's a lot deeper, but that's the highlight of it.
You don't have to cut off the deep part because you said it, and I don't know if people really comprehend what you just said. You just said, and then I became best friends with him.
Hmm.
And you literally mean you're best friends with Evander Holyfield. Like
Yes.
you're watching a guy on TV just like me and everybody else.
Hmm.
And then you feel compelled to go reach out to him.
Right.
And then and that's not the only person that you've befriended and become close to. And we're not saying that to brag or something, but like
Oh,
times in your faith where like God has told you, "Hey, I'm about to connect you with somebody.
yeah,
Somebody is about to be close to you." And then all of a sudden, it's like everything moves out of the way and it
exactly.
happens.
It
Th-
did. Yes.
there's something you said in the middle of that that I think is so critical, especially to a person maybe they are wavering in their faith or
Hmm.
they're new to their faith. You
Hmm.
said that that guy told you, talk to God. It's okay if you doubt him. It's
Hmm.
okay if you have questions. Just talk to him anyway. I
Hmm.
don't know how often we hear that message. Why do
Right.
you think that was a critical part of the instructions he gave you? Because I see that as pretty critical.
Because to me, I thought God was this, he'll do this ritualistic thing, or it was this special thing, and to make it intimate like that, like intimate, like just talk to God, just have a conversation with him and tell him how you feel. Don't he knows it anyway. You don't have to hide anything. He wants to hear it from you and have a relationship with you. And so as I started doing that, and I was concentrating on just talking to God, I didn't have to say these special things. I didn't have to do anything special. Just actually talk to God and tell him how I felt, and it became very personal. That's because I thought, I kept saying nothing's happening. I don't hear all this, this whatever type thing, everybody talks about until that day. And believe me, it's
Mm,
for real because it happened to me.
mm,
When I had when God spoke to me and I got saved. But it was very impactful. And I tell the people the same thing when they ask me. I say, just talk to God. Don't worry. Don't try to be perfect, because you don't go to a hospital when you're cured. You go to the hospital when you're sick.
mm-hmm.
And so I say, just go to God as you are and talk to him with your heart. Ask him, talk to him.
That's
And
good.
that's what I encourage them to do, because that's what happened to me. And I know what happened, what it did for me. And I do that for people. And the same thing happens, and it might not happen. Sometimes it happens right then. But it took me 2 months. But I think God wants to get to the point to where he wants to see how serious you are about it, and he knows anyway, but he's want to get that relationship with you. And so that's just my message, because that's just what happened to me, and that's what I was told, and that's what I encourage others to do. That if you feel drawn to God, I need to read my Bible. No, just stop where you are and just talk to God. Tell him how you feel, ask him questions, tell him things, and get personal with it in your heart. Get quiet, and he'll speak. He says, knock and I shall answer. Seek and you shall find. And then that's the truth.
Yeah, there's been some moments in my faith journey where, what I heard very clearly in prayer was he said to me, I need you desperate.
Mhm.
And there's sometimes in our walks where, okay, you imagine being a kid and you want to talk to your dad, but like your dad, and for many of us, dad is a little bit of an intimidating character.
Mhm.
We most of us have strong dads, the strong
Right.
silent types, and so sometimes you need to like almost build up the courage, and then you get to a place of desperation, like I can't help it, I have to
Right.
talk to dad, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's like what God really wants is for us to find that place faster. Like to not need, you don't need for anything to get bad. You don't
Right.
need for anything to be awful. Just
Right.
come to me because everybody's got that place of desperation on the inside. We all have insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
We all have worries about what's to come. We all
Hmm.
that is to be human. And he's like, tap in to what is real in you,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna unlock what's real in me.
Right.
When you hear God speak, you personally, I know there's some people who want to know this because not everybody feels like they've ever heard God.
Mhm.
What does God sound like to you in your personal prayer time?
Well, like I tell you, hey, God speaks to people in different ways, but as far as me, he speaks to me in prayer time, but also at times I've asked him something, he'll reveal it to me. It's like, it's undeniable that it's him in my head. It's not a voice that I hear external. It's in me, and I know it's him. It's a very powerful message. And just for instance, 5.5 years ago when I got in hold of Evander, God's the one out of nowhere when I got frustrated in the film industry, and I sat down and said, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And he told me the thing. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about Evander, and he says, get hold of Evander Holyfield. And I said, what? I said, what's he got to do with movie stuff and all this and that, And he said, and he told me something else, and I did it, and the doors blew off the hinges. And now me and Evander are best friends. He comes and stays with me. I go stay with him, and we talk every day. And he helps me spiritually. And we're just like brothers. It's amazing how God works, and the stuff He's doing in my life is remarkable. And it's only through God. It's nothing that I'm doing. It's only because of Jesus Christ.
There's somebody who hears that and they don't connect with it, or they don't resonate with it. I know that, like, there's some people, they struggle
Mm-hmm.
when you say you can do nothing without him, because we know that's scripture.
Right.
What does that mean to you? Like, you're an entrepreneur, you're a successful entrepreneur. Some people could say you're successful because of your strategies, you're successful because of your hard work. What's God have to do with it? Where do you see God in that journey and in that process? Like, how do you find God personally?
Well, I am a hard worker, but God gave me he put that in me and gave me the ability to make that happen. I can beat on the door all day long, but unless somebody's there to open it, me working hard is not going to do anything.
Come on.
And so my with the gifts that I'm given and everything is all because of Jesus Christ, and the things that I don't even work for that just happen
Mm,
is astronomically impossible to try to say that it's by coincidence or anything else. But even if it is, like I tell people, God works in the supernatural. He mixes the super into the natural. It's not like a hand's going to come down and put it there. It's going to work in our everyday lives. But if you pray for it, it happens. The proof's in the pudding.
mm,
So, um, but yeah, I mean, it's God works in all kind of ways.
mhm,
But as far as me, I don't. I mean, I understand that I work hard, but God also gave me an imagination and a creative side to me, and I use it, and I could use it for negative, or I could use it for positive, And I put God first, and I use it, and I ask Him to direct me with it, and then the fruits of it show. So it's undeniable. I give God all the glory for everything, because without Him, even though I might be doing what I'm doing, but I'd be a nervous wreck. I
mm.
wouldn't better enjoy it. I'd be a nervous wreck with all the pressures I have on me every day. It would be, it'd be mind boggling. So with God, He gives me the strength, the courage, and everything else, and the faith that I have to do what I have to do.
So someone is listening right now, they're watching right
Mhm.
now, and they've heard you deliver most of this interview. You're
Mhm.
calm, you're articulate, you are very, very well put together as a man. And they've already forgotten what we said at the beginning of the interview.
Mhm.
So they completely have forgotten about how we said that you've battled crippling anxiety for your entire
Perfect.
life.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
just like a little bit of anxious,
No. No. No.
crippling
Yes.
anxiety.
Hmm.
Could you take us a little deeper into what that journey has been like for you? I know that, like, at this point, you're speaking to corporations and speaking to churches and speaking to people about it because we live in an anxious world. But
Hmm.
there's somebody who really doesn't understand what we mean when we say you battle crippling anxiety. Could you take them a little deeper into your journey and help them to understand what it was like maybe at its worst, but also what it's like for you on an everyday basis, because it's something you're always grappling with?
I mean, I could give example after example, and it as it happens, it manifests in different ways. But when I have OCD, I mean, I had a panic attack so bad in my bedroom one time. I slept on my couch for a year and a half,
Mm,
because I couldn't bring myself back in my bedroom, because I don't know if, anxiety is a natural expression of what we do to survive. So yeah, I'm sure everybody in their lives had something bad. If they rode a roller coaster, if they've done something bad, it was very traumatic and scary. You don't want to do that again. It's very traumatic to think back to that memory. And that's to keep us from going to danger. Well, that same thing happens in a panic attack where we have it at, because even though there's nothing that provoked it, or that made it happen, it seems that it just come out of nowhere. We still have that feeling, and we relate it back to whatever we're doing at the time, and whatever we're doing at the time in our memory, we're scared to do it again because we just have that terrible feeling. And so I've had that. I've had what they call harm OCD, to where I feel like I'm going to do something terrible to myself. I've had to hide like knives and guns in my house. Not that I would ever do it, but it's the fear I'm going to do it. I've walked through Walgreens before and saw a magazine of Robin Williams talking about suicide, and I had to walk out of the. I couldn't look at the magazine because it brought about that fear. That it's a daily fear. It's not something that just comes and it fleets. When I open my eyes up in the morning, when I have these episodes that last, my last one lasted when I got changed off my medicine. It lasted for 5 years. I had probably 3 months of okayness scattered throughout 5 years. And so it was a daily terrible nightmare struggle. But by the time I open my eyes to the time I go to sleep at night, I have to take medication to go to sleep. It's there, with just maybe brief little periods of relief. And but God's put that on me, and I've used it to strengthen me. I haven't let it define me or break me down. It's just something that I've overcome, and it's made me stronger, and I can help others that are going through the same thing, and I can have great insight into what they have because I've dealt with so many kinds of this anxiety and OCD and panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety that I'm able to have insight into people and really help them and encourage them and give them and like, man, I've never been to explain it like that, but you can explain it. That's how I feel, and I believe God's done that. I don't believe God makes you suffer, but he says all things work together for the good to those who are called according to my purpose. So
Hmm.
if I go through it, I can use it for the good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's 100%.
Hmm.
So when you are going through it,
Hmm.
what are the things that you turn to when you're giving advice to someone else? What are some of those top tools, those top techniques that you believe can really help a person in that battle? If maybe somebody's listening right now, they've had a crippling, experiences, outside of, taking medication, going to the psychiatrist, doing those things that you can do. What are the practical things that a person can do to overcome anxiety?
And I say, I'm not sure the word overcome is the proper word, but manage it. Because I think a lot of people want to overcome it and they feel like it's never going to go away and it gets overwhelming. Is that have the mindset that I can manage it, that
Mm,
I can live with this, I can learn to manage it and it not manage me. And I think
that's
that's the
good.
ultimate goal rather than overcome it. But exercise, I think exercise is very important. Diet, I haven't drank caffeine since my psychiatrist when I was 16 said, "Did you drink caffeine?" I said, "Yeah," because that's pouring fuel on the fire. That was it, brother. No more caffeine. And trying to eat right, exercise. I'm not talking about you got to go on this strict diet, but try to watch what you eat. Sugars can cause inflammation in your neurotransmitters and things like that. Alcohol, drugs are the worst thing in the world. Even though you might feel like it's self-medicating, it actually makes your neurotransmitters and stuff worse. And especially if you're taking medications and antidepressant for your anxiety, alcohol actually makes it quit working. And so things like that. And meditating, I meditate. It takes practice. It's not you do it one time and you're cured. But these are tools. Positive thinking. Not trying to not let things become negative in your life. Gratitude, being a look at the good things. Every night I tell people a lot. I say start out every night thinking of just 5 things that good that happened in your life that day. Every night before you go to bed, think of 5 things that happened good in your life for about a week or two. Then move it up to 10, and before you know it, you're getting in the habit of thinking of good things rather than negative things. You're finding good things. I say, okay, now eventually move up to 30. And so as you're searching these things out, you get in the habit of paying attention and looking for good things rather than negative. And also, people to understand anxiety is that most of it's the fear of the unknown and everything. But I like to use the example, and you've heard me probably use this before when we've spoken of cars going down the highway. Because I'll talk to people, you don't need medicine or you can do this, and I'm like, well, picture cars going down the highway in front of you as you're driving and they're putting on their brakes at different times and some put them on harder or they're not as hard as others or whatever and it looks the same. The red lights come on, the car slows down. But if you were to ask every driver why they did that, they would say, well, I spilled my coffee. Another one, my cell phone might have rang. Another one, a car pulled out in front of me. So even though all the symptoms look the same with the car slowing down, there's different reasons causing it. And that's the thing is that each individual has to figure out on their own of the best way to treat theirs, if that
I
makes
think it's
sense.
also, oh no, it makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people, what they also miss is, let's keep going with your car analogy, that if
Mhm.
you've ever been driving down the road and a car pulled out in front of you, maybe you got into an accident, what eventually starts to happen is now you have a memory
Mhm.
behind you of how the car pulled out in front of you, damaged your car, hurt your body, hurt somebody else. It was scary, whatever. Now, when I drive again, it's not just the fear of the unknown, it's also sometimes the fear of what I have known. So
Mhm.
sometimes we begin to project
Right.
something from behind us onto the future.
Right.
So if I'm thinking all the time about the negative things in my life, I'll begin to envision myself having negative things coming ahead of me. So when you tell people sit down and focus on the positive, it's because I have to begin to visualize for myself good things are coming.
Mhm.
Positive things are coming. This is not just hell breaking loose in my life.
Right.
Heaven's on the way. Like
Right.
there's some real perspective we need to have there. How do you personally refocus? How do you, if you have something negative, we all have disappointments, we
Mhm.
all have failures, we all have heartbreaks. How do you get yourself to reapproach those things in your own mind?
Well, basically life's life. You just got to accept life. What I've done, and accept who you are. I mean, that's what Carl Jung talked about and everything, and do is self acceptance. And accepting what you have, and like I say, not let it define you. So when negative events come up, and I'm very faith based, and I had my faith, and I believe, that God's going to take care of it, and He always has. He's not going to just leave me out there, but. Um, Things get better. They always get better, and we live 98% of our time in our imagination.
Mm,
The things that we're seeing in our head that scare us is not reality. The only thing true right now is right now.
mm-hmm,
Everything else are just scenarios. And so we scare ourselves and get down or depressed or what have you by mere imagination. We scare ourselves with our own imagination. And
mm-hmm,
so, trying to getting grasp that. People say, "Well, I'm not capable of doing that." Of course you are. If I can do it, believe me, I've spent 30 something years of very intense, extreme work on myself. But it's worth it. Am I cured? Am I no? I have my struggles and everything, but I work with it. I have my tools. I'm used to, you know, how I have to do certain things, to help it. And it's medicine. Thank God for medication. It helps me tremendously, but what keeps it going is my attitude, going to my psychologist, my psychiatrist, my meditating, and having a positive attitude. It takes
mm-hmm,
practice, because a lot of these things are habits that we pick up. We don't notice it. It's like, because,
mm-hmm,
I train boxers and everything, and it's like, I tell my fighter, if you have like Evander Holyfield or whoever out there, that, they know probably done way more than their trainers, but you don't pay attention. You drop in that hand sometimes, when you throw it, you drop it. Hey man, keep your hand up. So that's what's good about having a psychologist, that you start doing these things over a period of time that you don't realize. And by the time it gets to be a full blown habit, it's like a knee jerk reaction. You're like,
mm-hmm.
why did I have this anxiety attack, or why am I having anxiety? Because the mind thinks so fast that you might not even realize the negative thoughts that you're having and the emotions that follows that.
And there's something you said, you've actually used the word multiple times now, the word practice. I
Mhm.
think that for many people, they feel like when they decide to start meditating, to start praying, to start practicing gratitude, it's spin around in a circle, click your heels a couple of times, say there's no place like peace, and just
Mhm.
like that, the peace is coming. The
Mhm.
reality is, these things are practices. You
Yes.
have to learn over time. And by the way, it's not just learn during peacetime, you have to learn during wartime. In
Right.
other words, you have to learn how to trust going to that prayer, going to that meditation when your mind is kind of going crazy, and saying, "Hey, this has to also work now." I think that's
Yeah.
also really important.
Yeah, and my thing is, I tell people they want to start doing these things once they get bad, and I say, no, you need to meditate and practice things when you're doing good.
That's
It's like
good.
lifting weights. A football player, they have preseason, training. They don't just take them out there and so go play football. You got to get yourself ready so when the task comes, you're prepared for it. So that's why, Jesus was talking to the Garden of Gethsemane, tell them to pray up. Hey, we got problems coming, but they wasn't prayed up. So you got to practice these things in the good times. So when the bad times hit, you're ready for them.
That's it.
So that you can't wait till you get, going bad. It's like getting sick. You don't wait till you get sick to start working out, to feel better. You got to work out so when you get sick, you can absorb it, you know. And so
Yeah, one of the ways I've described it many times is, so I've done a lot of work in the drug counseling world,
Mhm.
and what I say to people is, I want you to imagine that we do all this talking about all these tools, all these techniques, and you get home, and all of a sudden the craving comes, right? The desire to go and do everything that you want just because you want it, and you decide right now it's the time for me to meditate for the first time. Like you've got God, the Godzilla of addiction, the Godzilla of desire, the Godzilla of temptation, up against. You remember Mike Tyson's punching Mike Tyson? Remember that game, the video game
Nintendo.
Punch Out, right?
Mhm.
Right. You got Lil Mac, okay, up
Mhm.
against Godzilla. He's not ready for that fight,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And so what I really need to do is I need to start familiarizing myself with stuff when it's not bad. I
right,
need to learn myself and learn how to breathe and learn how to interact with things so that when it gets hard, now I've got a puncher's chance, right?
right.
And sometimes it's you said something. You said this is not just about overcoming, it's about management. Because the truth is sometimes when I sit down and I lean on a coping skill, all that it's going to do is level me off at best.
Mhm.
There's sometimes where I'm not going to walk away feeling like a winner. Like I'm still going to feel a little bit overwhelmed and I'm still going to feel a little bit, but
Yeah,
I'm not where I was.
right.
How does a person grapple with that?
The human mind is so complex. We're just now scratching the surface, and like I say, each individual is different. But like for a person that's having tremendous amount of anxiety, like it's overwhelming to where the disorder is taking. It's hard to sit down and do these breathing exercises stuff. That's with the miracle of medicine. Thank God for it. Is that it can bring you to a place and alleviate it down to where you're able to listen because when you're having this severe anxiety and you're at that point to where you're just in this reel, and that's all you think about. You're not really listening and rationalizing things out to a point, to better take these things and practice. So medication, prescribed in the correct way by a good doctor is able to alleviate this and bring it down to where you can start listening and practice these things. So it just depends on what level of anxiety you have. You have milder versions where you can go in there and start helping it, but you have severe cases to where it takes medication and everything. But it just all depends on the individual and what they're going through. I hate because there's not like a panacea, type deal, a cure all be all thing out there, but you have to customize it to yourself and figure it out. Some people they might crochet, some people like myself, I got to exercise, some people can draw, some people sing. Find out what works for you and and get with a good therapist. And it like again, it depends on how bad you have it. It makes sense.
It does make sense. I
Yeah.
also think that even if you don't have it super bad,
Right.
I think that there is truth in what you said for everybody. In
Hmm.
that, whatever your struggle with, for somebody who's listening today, they don't even struggle with anxiety, they struggle with depression, or they struggle with some other issue or ailment, mental ailment. I
Hmm.
think that investigation and curiosity are extraordinarily important no matter what it is you're dealing with, because
Hmm.
no, there's no psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist of any kind that can tell you do this one thing and when you do this thing it'll fix it.
Right.
It's like, hey, you're going to have to try some things and
Trial and
try a
error.
series and combination. It's trial and error. And you've got to know that you're worth it
Hmm.
to do the trial and error.
Right. And like again, there's nothing. People just want. That's a lot of the problem is sometimes people want the easy way. They don't want to work at things. It's just this takes work. But that's the thing that's it's like working out. I mean, when you work out and you work hard, that's what's going to stay there and last. When it's natural. So, uh, working on things and putting in the work of a senior therapist and doing these habit things is what's going to be lasting and what's going to help it out the most. Alcohol is not the answer. That just it's just going to make it worse. Drugs are just going to make it worse. And so when you get on the proper medication or therapy or whatever works for you, that's medically is going to be the best benefit.
You know, I was thinking a little bit as you were talking just now that
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating. We talked earlier about how God works everything together for the good.
Mm-hmm.
As you have been on this journey of investigating who you are and what you like and what helps, you
Mm-hmm.
have accumulated this unbelievable resume of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are a fiction author. I'm sure at some point the nonfiction's coming because your story has to be told.
Right.
The
Mm-hmm.
boxing trainer, you own the paint company, and you just kind of threw that in like it wasn't a big deal, and it's a huge
Mm-hmm.
deal. And then you're the motivational speaker. I mean, you literally do all of these different types of tasks, some of which use different parts of the mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like some of your journey and you're having to discover yourself constantly and reinvent yourself constantly is part of how you found out so much about yourself and found out so many gifts in the process.
Right. I mean, that's the thing is you got to get out there and do things, and the Lord's blessed me with a lot of gifts and they used to be out of control, my OCD and things like that, but I've used what was a negative thing and learned to channel it toward positive things,
There it is.
and doing things like that. So you always can take the bad and make the good out of it, because if you can take good and make bad out of it, then it's only obvious you can take something bad and make good out of it, so I've taken what I have I like accomplishing goals. I like it. It's you. I believe you cannot pursue happiness. Happiness has to ensue. I love reading about Viktor Frankl and his Man's Searches for Meaning. I highly recommend the book. And he says that man, happiness cannot be pursued. It has to ensue by something that we do responsible and meaningful. That man's purpose is to find meaning in life. And so that's what I try to tell people. Find your purpose once you and fulfillment in what you do, and everybody's got gifts and talents. I mean, everyone does. Everybody's got something that they have, and once you find that, and you got to try and do things, it's very rewarding. And so I'm just one of those that just happen to I have the I'm able to multitask and do things very well, so I'm able to do these different things, and but it all comes back to showing others what you can do, whatever your dreams are, you can do it, and I like to be that showing, look, man, this, I quit school in ninth grade, I got my GED, but I'm able to accomplish all this. So I tell people all the time that it doesn't matter where you've been or what you've been through. If you want to do it enough and you put God first or what have you, then you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish, no matter what you have or anything. I mean, it's if I can do it, believe me, you can do it.
A person can do it. They would have to have, though, the level of there's a balance that you have because there is a confidence, there is a humility, but there is also a teachable spirit that never leaves you. I have got a chance to get to know you personally. Okay, so some people, when I sit down and have interviews on my podcast, I'm meeting for the first time, or I've met them one other time, but I've got a chance to sit down with you in different areas, and
Mhm.
you are a student of life.
Mhm. Very
So
much
you
so.
might have left school in the ninth grade, but you never left the school of life, and you're always chasing after a new degree. Like
Right.
you're always realizing that I've got to be humble enough to learn. I think that that is a trait that's missing for many people, and that partially can hold them back from experiencing some of the accomplishments that maybe God would like to see them accomplish.
Yeah, man, learning is everything. I mean, Plato said it's better to be unborn than untaught, for ignorance is the root of all misfortune. So I'm constantly learning. I couldn't count change until I was 21 years old.
Mm.
But I went and got me a high school mathematic book and taught myself math. I mean, I love to read and educate myself on everything that I can.
Come
And
on.
what's that?
Oh, I just said, come. I'm sorry. You were
Yeah.
preaching for a second. I got
No,
excited.
no. I just love learning. I believe the more knowledge is, without knowledge, you don't understand things, and it brings about fear. When you don't understand things, you're not knowledgeable about things. Things creep in and and bring about fear and different things. And so, I learn. I love to learn. I believe life is fascinating. Life's the biggest. If you let life teach you, it's the greatest teacher of all. You know what I mean? And so I pay attention and I don't look at things as failure. I love what Evander summed it up one time when I asked him. I said, "What was it like, man, when you lost your first fight? To Riddick Bowe. What was it like?" He said, "I don't lose." I said, "Yeah, Evander, you lost." He said, "No, I just don't get the decision sometimes. You lose when you quit." And that really resonated with me, that you lose when you quit. Not you don't get the decisions all the time. Like he told me one time, if if you quit every time things don't go your way, you're gonna be quitting your whole life.
Mm,
And so if you read, and I love studying about successful people, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Musk, Elon Musk, all these people, man, the common denominator is they didn't quit. And like Albert Einstein said, imagination is everything. It's the preview for life's coming attractions. Is have an imagination and don't quit when you do it. It was failure and success is on the same road. Failure just is a down the street a little, earlier. And so it's not to quit, and then that's the thing that I have more than anything is tenacity. And when you know something and you set your mind, I think of things, I kick it around and think it over good. And once I make my mind up, that's just, I'm going to do it. And that directs my mind off, and getting outside of myself and things is directing myself toward a very positive goal that makes an impact, not just in my life, but others' lives. And when I do it, I like to tell people it's not so much, look what I did, it's look what you can do too, you know?
mm.
And I like to bring everybody, if you help a friend up a mountain, you'll be there yourself. And
Come,
so,
oh,
you
oh,
know,
one more time.
well,
Say that
well,
again.
if you help a friend up a mountain, you'll be there yourself. If you
Come
just do
on.
it. Yeah. So that's what I like. If you do something and, show others, hey man, oh, you can do this too. You just dream. What are your dreams? And what I do in a lot of things, and I started out just doing this as a little, I don't know why I did it, but it becomes things that I tell people and they really like it, is I always look back. Sometimes now I do it 2 weeks, but I used to every month or a year, I'd look back and say, if I was to go back in a time machine, what could I tell myself or teach myself that I didn't know right now?
Don't
But
don't
back
tell us
then,
that answer. Don't tell us the answer, because
yeah,
there's a
no,
question
but
that's coming, so you can't answer that
yeah, but
question
but
yet.
I do this. I do this now weekly because I look back and I say a week ago, if I was to go in a time machine and see myself a week ago, what do I know now that I could teach myself that I didn't know then? And if
Mm,
I'm not thinking of things big, I need to get to work
come
because
on.
I need to constantly be working. That every day I need to learn something new that I could go back a week ago and say, hey man, this is something that you need to know. you know. And so that's I started that as just a thing I would do, but it's become something that really helps me. So every week at night, once a week, I lay in my bed and when I'm going to bed at night, I think, what are the things, and it's hopefully a multitude of things, that I can go back and teach myself that I could if I had the ability to go back and
Mm.
teach myself. You know.
I love that. I love that question. I've never asked myself that question before,
Yeah.
but I feel like that might be something that I steal from you, because I think that's a necessary question.
Yeah.
So right now, I've just got a couple more questions left for you. These are
Yeah.
the standard ones that I ask every person. But one thing I know for sure is that for many of you, as you've been listening, as you've been watching, you've just gotten so much out of this interview. I know I have. Make sure that you're
Mhm.
leaving in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, what it is you've taken from this interview. Also, if you haven't yet, would you send this to a friend? Would you make sure that there's somebody who's listening or watching today who gets this interview? They've had their battles and they think that they just have no hope, they have no chance, they're going to be stuck for life. And here it is, a guy who left school, battled OCD and anxiety and all these things. He left school 14 years old, high school dropout. And you just heard all these incredible accomplishments, and he's not even telling you half of them, because if you're looking in the background, if for those of you who are watching the video, you're seeing a championship belt in the background. He's not just trained people, he's trained champions. I mean, he's done all kinds of stuff that he's just not going to brag about. He's overcome so many things, and yet is still overcoming so many things. Don't you have a friend who needs to hear this message? Don't you have a family member who needs to hear this interview? I think you do. So, Craig, somebody has been listening to this, watching this. They want to learn more about you. Maybe they want to bring you in. You're a speaker, so they want to bring you in to speak at their school, to speak for their business, to speak at their gym to their fighters or their athletes. How do they get a hold of you, and how do they find you?
Well, my best way is my website, cstilley.com, cstilley.com. But I'm on Facebook, Craig Stilley, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can find me. But the best way is the cstilley.com website.
All right. Now here's the question that I ask every guest, and now it's your turn.
Okay.
So I want you to imagine that it's 100 years from now,
Okay.
and there is a museum of popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
Inside of that museum, there's a room marked Hope. And I
Mm-hmm.
want you to imagine that there's a person who's really struggling. They're having a hard day, they're having a hard life, and they stumble into the room of Hope. And inside, there's time capsules everywhere. They walk up to your time capsule and they see photos of you and some of your boxers. They see some footage of your film. They see your book. They see all these elements of your life and your legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this clip. And this is the clip where you explain to them what hope means to you. What do you say that hope is?
Hope is that things will always get better. There's always hope. Life's worth living, and it always gets better. It might not feel like it in the moment, but it always gets better. Give it time. Do not give up. Keep pushing, and you'll do and always get better. And life will get better, and you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish. I mean, it's that's it. I mean, it's not easy, but it's worth it. And I love what Booker T. Washington says. One of my favorite quotes, and actually one on my tombstone, is not necessarily the success one has achieved in life, but the obstacles one has to overcome while trying to succeed. And that's my favorite quote.
Well, you have been one of my favorite guests that
Oh,
I've
really?
ever had.
Well, thanks.
Not only because of how great this has been, and it's been full of so many gems that I'm going to go back and watch myself, but also because of what you mean to me and what you represent as we have this conversation. Because you are the proof to me that God is God.
Mhm. Well, thank
Right?
you. Thank you.
That we stumbled into a room together. We were standing in a room but we were both going to be on a TV show together.
Mhm.
And you got your nerves and you're thinking through, what am I going to say and what am I going to do and how's this going
Mhm.
to go? And you got neither one of us were from the state we were in, and
Mhm.
yet we ended up, taking an Uber together, riding on a train together, doing all this stuff together, and then we became friends afterwards.
Mhm.
And you're the proof that God knew what I needed.
Yeah. Well, the
You know what I
same
mean?
with you. Yeah, same with you. I mean, we become great friends, and that was a God moment. I mean, God meant us to be there together.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. And I think that it was meant for you to be in front of everyone on this Hope Rising audience today. So I thank you for your time and your energy. It's been beautiful.
Thank you for inviting me, buddy.
Absolutely, you're so welcome. And I want to thank all of you for listening in, for watching today. What I hope you heard from this is that everyone has struggles and hard times. And sometimes, yes, you can overcome a thing. You can just defeat a thing. You can just win. Sometimes you have to learn how to manage a thing, how to survive until you thrive. You have to practice a thing until you reach perfect or perfection. And sometimes perfection isn't what you thought it would be, but it's everything it was meant to be. There's so much power that was in this interview, and there's also so much power on the inside of you. You just have to understand that you're worth searching for it. And I hope you will also search very soon for another episode of Hope Rising, where the unfulfilled go to find fulfillment and those who inspire go for another dose of inspiration. We'll talk to you soon.